Another revelation by Times Now, and now it's about a family. The family of Satish Tikku, who's been running from pillar to post to get justice, but justice has been elusive. Here on Times Now's campaign, Reopen Kashmir Files, we now get you proof of how, when a family even tried to knock on the doors of court and the police, they were stonewalled. We have accessed an affidavit that was filed in the Supreme Court in 2021, where a desperate brother has revealed how, over the last 32 years, the investigation into Tikku's murder was systematically stonewalled.
Well, in fact, let's get our viewers a look at this affidavit that Times Now has managed to access. We are going to get you details which have never been told on Indian television. We are going to get out all the details. For example, this is the affidavit that we are getting for you. This is an affidavit filed in 2021 by Krishan Tikku in the Supreme Court. He's the brother of Satish Tikku. Well, the things that he says is that after Bitta Karate's arrest, the prosecution did not conduct a proper probe. That's one of the first charges he made. He goes on to say neither the applicant nor any family member were ever contacted by the police. Remember, there were also eyewitnesses in the case. He goes on to say that the police didn't contact any of the family members for the investigation or even for basic verification as to what really happened and how Satish Tikku was shot dead in broad daylight. He goes on to say that there was no information if the investigation has even begun or whether it's been completed. They ran from pillar to post. However, there was still no information given, even if the charge sheet was filed or if the trial had reached its end. And all of this, remember, when there were eyewitnesses who said Bitta Karate came to their home in the morning, asked for Satish Tikku. He was turned away by his sister who said he's not at home. Later on, when Satish Tikku came out of his house to go towards the chemist shop, he was shot dead by Bitta Karate and his aides. All of this, however, gets Padmaja over to you. You must explain to us how that it's not just this affidavit but also a confession.
Absolutely, because if Satish Tikku's name rings a bell, it's because his murderer, his assassin himself spoke about how he killed Satish Tikku and on camera. Remember that chilling interview of Bitta Karate, Farooq Abdullah, alias Bitta Karate, when he was interviewed on TV, he said, yes, I have killed Satish Kumar Tikku. He says, this was my first murder. I killed him because I got orders from above. I killed him because he was from the RSS. Bitta Karate, in that interview given to Manoj Raghuvanshi, also said everyone gets funds for the killings of Hindus. Gilani and Yasin Malik, talking about Syed Ali Shah Gilani, the man who was once hailed as some kind of peacenik, Syed Ali Shah Gilani and Yasin Malik and I were all paid from above. I killed most of the victims with pistols, but I also used AK-47 to fire and kill security forces. This is not a contested version. It's something that a murderer himself has said on camera. In fact, he said, Meghna, Satish Tikku was my first target, the first one that I killed. It was a targeted killing. Let's also bring in Madhav Das Gopalakrishnan, who is going to give us more details of what exactly the affidavit tells us about dereliction, but more details from you before that, Meghna.
Well, we'll just go across to Madhav. Let's also quickly remind our viewers that here on Times Now, we are going beyond just the affidavits and the person who pulled the trigger, but also those who enabled the Hindu genocide to happen. Here on Times Now, we are now going to show you how exactly there was patronage which was given to Bitta Karate, a man who confessed that he had killed Satish Tikku. In fact, we are going to show you from the first pointer itself, we are going to show you how this man was granted bail in 2006. However, this went uncontested. By whom? It was then the Azad government. Of course, it's a Congress government. Later on, the judge also had called out the government, saying that the allegations against the accused are very serious. In fact, this is Justice N. Divani who says that crimes carry punishment of death sentence. This is something that the judge has said that the prosecution shows total disinterest in the case to try and prosecute and bring this man to book who had confessed to the murder, not just of Satish, but also of about 200 to 300 Hindus he had admitted to. In fact, in 2006, later on, Ghulam Nabi Azad was also the chief minister under whom a bail was given. The bail was also not contested later on in 2009. At the time, it was Omar Abdullah government who was the chief minister. Again, when the bail came up, 2015, Mufti Muhammad Saeed was the chief minister. Again, the bail was not contested by the successive governments. 2018, and this was very interesting. This is Mehbooba Mufti government, which is of course backed by the BJP. She was the chief minister. What happened? There was further patronage to Bitta Karate and his family. The wife of Bitta Karate was appointed a liaison officer, a government officer by the Jammu and Kashmir government. All of this under the BJP PDP rule. 2017 PDP BJP rule government had given this kind of a patronage not just to a man who had confessed to the crime, but also someone who had himself admitted to have committed these crimes.
Absolutely. Let's also go across to Madhav Gopalakrishnan, because you've read through the rest of the affidavit. Why is it that despite all of these years elapsing, Madhav, no action was taken? They said, our brother has been killed, please act against the killers. What happened next?
Well, Padmaja, you know, there are several versions of what happened, how it actually took place. The fact that there was political patronage is something that my colleague Meghna has already elaborated on. But if you look at this affidavit, the myth that has been propagated repeatedly by the investigating agencies, by the political parties, by the terrorists themselves and the separatists who, they may not pick up the gun themselves, at least very actively support these terrorists through the overground funding. It is the fact that they try and come out and say that because they are terrorists, the common people don't want to come out and become witnesses in this case because they fear for their lives. But if one is to believe the family members whose affidavit we're putting out right here, they've come out to in fact completely bust that myth that has been propagated time and again. They are saying that the prosecution and the investigating agencies did not do their work properly, that the investigation and the rigors of investigation that we see, particularly in cases of heinous crimes such as murder, was not there on ground. Family members who are willing to come forth as eyewitnesses were not even contacted by the police, and that's what makes this affidavit that much more shocking. So who is it that was protecting the interests of these terrorists? Cold-blooded murderers like Bitta Karate, who on camera have come out to say that over 20 to 30 Kashmiri Hindus have been killed by him by pistol, in great detail, talking about the fact that he has absolutely no remorse about carrying out these targeted killings of Kashmiri Hindus. All of that very well documented on tape. Who is the person who was protecting this? It is a series of politicians and political leaders who have in fact who actually have blood on their hands, to the extent that they've gone ahead and protected these individuals. They've called them freedom fighters and all sorts of names, but they are nothing but cold-blooded murders. And now, with all of the truth being exposed, perhaps it is high time that those who are responsible for justice now act in a responsible manner.
In fact, if there has to be the Truth Commission, which is set up, all the people, whether in retirement or serving, should be rounded up and monetary cost should be imposed to them in addition to taking penal action. Madhav, thanks very much for joining us. Ratan Sharda, author, and Syed Fazal Kashani, spokesperson of JKAP, is with us. Kashani साहब, ये बताइए कि 32 साल में ऐसा कैसे हो सकता है कि एक मर्डर की इन्वेस्टिगेशन शुरू भी नहीं होती?
देखिए, उसके लिए तो आप जो प्रीवियस गवर्नमेंट्स रही हैं स्टेट में या सेंटर में, you should question their spokesperson about their involvement in delaying the justice. We believe justice delay to any innocent is a question mark on the judicial system itself. Now, what the government role was to, investigate and prosecute the killers, the government didn't do it. Now, the question is, after coming in power in 2014, what has BJP done to serve the justice? How many Pandits have been rehabilitated back in Srinagar or Kashmir Valley? So the question here is, you should.
Convenient. You've given a clean chit to all the previous governments who've done absolutely nothing in prosecution.
I began my point by saying that the question should be asked to the previous government, or initially the government who was in power when it happened, the Farooq Abdullah government at the state and the Rajiv Gandhi government at the center. The question should be asked to these political parties. What did they do when Pandits were being killed? What did they do when the Muslims were being killed?
So you're accepting that Farooq Abdullah has a lot to answer for, Rajiv Gandhi has to answer for it, VP Singh has to answer, and the BJP, which supported the VP Singh government, also has to answer. But Ratan Sharda, if there's one thing that is outlined by this particular case, is that even when a murderer admitted that yes, I killed Satish Tikku, a case was filed, it was stopped deliberately by the state government.
See, what do you talk of an ecosystem which says that the terrorists and separatists are Gandhi with a gun? What do you talk of a state where Justice Ganju are murdered because he had given a strong punishment to a terrorist, I think by death? He was killed. And this has been continuously going on. When Farooq Abdullah releases 70 terrorists and then the 19 January 1990 happens, did anybody try to do anything about it? No. So this is a continuous apathy. This is continuous falling at the feet of so-called secular illiberal lobby that we are talking today about. So let us not point fingers. The person who has come here, he has not talked of one thing that anybody could have done. There was a number of cases which are there in the actual FIR or filed by the police was 299. So it was confirmed only 299 Pandit died. The documentation of 4,000 people who are missing was never discussed. Why it was not discussed by any government? And you talk of BJP, PDP government. Remember, BJP for the first time in 70 years got a handle in the government. It was always a group of the same Kashmir Valley politicians who were patriot when they got power, who were separatists when they were not in power. Everybody was playing in the laps of the terrorists. And also remember, the separatists were given royal treatment by the government. Yasin Malik, the cousin of this guy, was being invited to Prime Minister home.
Absolutely. Yasin Malik had a 1 hour long meeting with the then Prime Minister in 2007, Manmohan Singh. This kind of patronage after Yasin Malik had given an interview in which he had admitted that yes, indeed, he was part of the Hindu genocide as well. Well, we are going to slip into a short break. We are going to return and we are going to be joined by Utsav Benz as well, a lawyer who can explain to us if this amount of compromise has been done at the probe level itself. Today, even if a commission is set up, can we actually hunt for this elusive truth and justice? In the latest disclosures that we've been getting for you, we told you how in the murder of Satish Tikku by self-confessed terrorist and someone who admitted to this crime, Bitta Karate, there was no probe. Even the family members who were eyewitnesses were not called in by the police to join in the probe to even give their testimonies. In fact, listen into one more voice which is coming in. Yet another person who says that they felt left down not just by successive governments at the state who failed to prosecute, but even the Supreme Court, unfortunately, who had said that it's now too late to reopen these files.
Earlier we went to the Supreme Court. They've dismissed our petition, saying that the time has passed, because we were fending ourselves. We wanted to come up on our own. We wanted to stand on our legs. We could not concentrate on all these things. Maybe we filed the petition after a few years, asking for commission of inquiry, asking for genocide. Kya hua? They dismissed. So this was the ecosystem which was existing here. We could not do anything. Now this movie has opened up so many things. Now at least after this, they should open up, shoot, bring them a book and tell the truth to the world, one. So this inquiry of commission is a must. I'm not talking about booking people who killed actually. I'm talking about those who also abetted them.
Dr. Ramesh Raina, President of the All India Kashmiri Samaj, is also with us. Dr. Raina, just explain to our viewers, how is it possible that despite a police complaint, nothing moves for 32 years? How could it at all be possible?
You see, this was and that's how it has happened for all these 30 years.
Well, there seems to be a bit of a problem there. Let's go across to Utsav Benz. He is a lawyer. He, of course, was someone who filed this affidavit also in the Supreme Court in 2021. Utsav Benz, there are apprehensions, and we've been speaking to several of the victims here on Times Now as well. Even today, and this is Times Now's campaign that we set up a commission. Do you think the way that these cases at the stage of probe have been compromised 33 years back, it is going to be a tough job to get those who were guilty to book? Utsav Benz.
It is a tough job, but it is not a difficult job. It is a tough job, but it is not a difficult job. We have seen that a special investigation team in the 84 riots has delivered its results. Sanjay Kumar is in jail today. So it is very, very possible, because the most startling thing about this case, in which I am a lawyer for Mr. Satish Tikku's family, who was killed by Bitta Karate. Bitta Karate has himself admitted to murdering him on camera. You don't need more evidence. You need corroborative evidence. In 31 years, just like the 1984 riots, it is very possible to have maybe a commission of inquiry or have a special investigation team, or even do the basic things which we are trying to do. Now, we have picked up the copy of the FIR in the Satish Tikku's murder case. We've gone to the trial court. The Supreme Court judgment in the Roots for Kashmir public interest litigation does not take away the right of any Kashmiri Pandit who has been murdered. It doesn't take the right from the family to go to the trial court and see, ask them that what has happened in the case. Has any charge sheet been filed? Now, point number one, Mr. Bitta Karate is accused of murdering so many Kashmiri Pandits and openly and brazenly accepts the fact that he murdered them. Point number two, for so many years, and this is part of judicial case record, in his bail order, while granting him bail, the judge has recorded that it is astonishing that the prosecution has totally failed to take any interest whatsoever to prosecute him. Now, say for example, there is a FIR under section 302 of the IPC. A charge sheet has to be filed within a time period. There have to be, charges have to be framed. There's a due process of law. What is so special about Mr. Bitta Karate is that for all these years, successive state governments did not let the criminal trial proceed in the right direction.
There has been subversion at this very basic level, at the level of the police. I'm unfortunately out of time. We're out of time. Thank you very much for now, gentlemen, for joining us. But ahead in the day, we will get you more details of how this one particular case isn't the only one. We will focus in greater detail, Meghna, on the case of Satish Tikku and how evidence and the process itself was subverted. But unfortunately, this is not the only one.